can't breathe again. God damn, I can't breathe. Our voices have been quarantined. COVID-19, 60s to 1619. Jamestown choked me, sold me, shackles hold me tightly by my neck, and I can't breathe again. 2020 ain't no fucking vision on your tail eye vision of why I'm living like a prejudged villain. CNN, Fox News commentating and debating why I can't fucking breathe again. How many times do I have to say this? I'm taking the gloves off because racism is the main deadliness that's contagious. I just got diagnosed and received a degree in criminology, but fuck your education. I don't want to learn shit from a nation that's racist. The definition of policing, overseeing property. I can't understand how the white man never understood how to handle the human properly. Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Noble Drew Ali spoke constantly, consciously, and cautiously about this ungodly prophecy. And you still worried about your profit, see? Amazon deliveries, handouts, hands up, don't shoot, but now your knees are on my neck stopping me from occupying oxygen that God obviously brought for me, for I am his offspring, his true seed. Motherfucker, get off of me, please. I can't breathe. Please, somebody call the police on the police, cause I can't breathe again. And everything hurts. Your words, your knees, your nerve. Your white wife who had the nerve to say she was frightened by black life while my face is on the fucking curb. I ain't scared of no fucking virus. This mask is for a riot. I can't breathe, and the media telling me to keep quiet, suffocating me into silence. The devil's greatest trick, convincing the world that we were the ones who were violent. Nah, they the ones deficient, insufficient comprehension of their barbaric existence. Y'all worried about this pandemic when our grandparents still trying to recover from when you gave them syphilis. Because in our blood, we scared of the white cells attacking our immunity. The system defective, infected. So who has the disease, you or me? Because I'm at a dis-ease, disadvantage, dismantled disability of your white knees killing me. Been on our neck for centuries. Knees or trees, either way you still lynching me. And what did we ever do to you except for build and make America great initially? Fuck again, cause I can't breathe. Potentially you missing me, clearly not listening. Intentionally, we are a people of peace, but like Pac said, I ain't no killer, but your policies are pushing me further from the legislation, jumping off the education, while your skinheads the damnation and your clandestine rhetoric will forever be evident. Fuck the elite in the top 3%, I'm heaven sent. I was born Asiatic and you made me asthmatic, so fuck your vaccines and masks. You gon' worry about these hands tomorrow cause you can't sanitize the past. You may have took my last breath, but you'll never colonize my spirit. Standing there watching while I die. I can't breathe, and you still can't hear it.
You see that? I was so excited. You know, you know, there's a lot of energy when your guest is co-producing your show because you are hopping into it. Thank you for that. I wanted to make sure I muted myself just in case I started crying during the showing of that video. That was a very intense video by Nick Cannon, who continues to use, and I'm going to say this just real quickly, people who and people of color who have access to privilege should always use that privilege and use that stage in order to uplift the movement and their people. And the fact that Nick Cannon holds that privilege and holds that wealth, but he still continues to use his voice and the stage that he has in order to uplift the movement and his people is a testament to his heart and his spirit. There was only one way for me to start this show, and that was with showing that video. This has been a very intense week for all of us. And so I wanted to start this week with this video in order to frame the conversation that we're going to have, because it's been a very, very intense week. And listen, this is one of the most powerful packed shows that I have ever produced. And I'm saying that from a producer's perspective. I'm not saying that from a host's perspective. I have one of my favorite guests on this show, a sister that I've known for a very short period of time, relatively, but she is action-packed. She is wise beyond her years, and she is a spitfire. Speaking truth to power, I'm so excited to have her here. I'm glad that she's joining us here. My name is Hasira H. Soul Ashe Mu. I am the guest of the Righteous Rage podcast, and that's where you are with us tonight. The title of this the show this evening is Black Anger, White Denial, and we're going to hop deep, heavy into it. And so I just want to let you know, as we go about dealing with this subject matter, that yes, it's going to be intense, but it's going to be truthful, and we're going to be here with you and throughout this show and this conversation. And so I hope you're all in to have it. I'm all in to give it to you. First and foremost, last week we introduced the 2-minute take. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with what the 2-minute take is, that is where you can log in and become a guest for 2 minutes, where you give your take. We introduced it last week, so whenever you introduce something, it's new, so people are getting used to it. Let me explain to you I'll explain it again before I started. But when I do the 2-minute take, you will come on, you will have 2 minutes, and I mean 2 minutes in the white 2-minute fashion, meaning 120 seconds. I'm not talking about 2 minutes from the Baptist church version of it. That's not what I mean when I say 2 minutes. Y'all get on here and then go straight to the pulpit. You got 2 minutes to come on, to give us your 2-minute take, to tell us what you're thinking, what you're feeling about the content that we've produced. So I will be posting the link for you to log on for your 2-minute take, probably in about 30 minutes, halfway through. In the meantime, and in the between time, let us go ahead and get to work with the show that we got lined up for you this evening. That part, for those of you who have missed the Nick Cannon part, I will load that on the link so that you can check that out later. Wow. Where do we begin here? With this particular subject matter, what we're going to be talking about is Black protests, BIPOC protests, people of color, and the white denial of that protest. So in order to frame that conversation, I want to start this conversation by how the media portrays Black protest, because that is what saturates the American mind behind what they're seeing and the validity of what they're seeing. So I want to start off by playing a piece of media for you that talks about, compares and contrasts how Black people are shown in the media around protest and how whites are shown in the media around protest. So I want you to check this out. Give me your thoughts on it. Let's do this right now.
Media covers white riots versus Black protests. Seems like when the protesters are Black, the media uses some pretty harsh words.
The bad guys, lawlessness, looting,
wild animals,
criminals, and thugs.
Thugs. Isn't it the right word?
However, if you're white and you're tearing up the city because of a game, you're just young people.
Young people danced on a flipped-over car.
His UK fans did stupid things.
Some maybe got a little out of control.
Seeing a scene like this just shows how passionate the UK fans are.
It's so tough to lose, and unfortunately the ugly side that we sometimes see in sports.
And notice how the police always show up to a black protest in military-grade equipment, and yet the media claims they're just doing nothing.
It's inexplicable why the police are doing nothing.
Let's mobilize the National Guard.
If I'm a riot and I see the police doing nothing, I might feel like I have a license.
You would.
But at white riots, the cops actually are standing around doing nothing.
Another group of cops over there just standing there.
No one was really doing anything.
These guys look like they could be watching a parade. And why is it that the leadership of the black community is always called into question?
Where is the leadership?
Leadership.
The black leadership.
The absence of leadership.
And it goes back to leadership, but that leadership has to come from the community.
But no one ever questions the leadership of white parents who let their kids burn down and vandalize their college campus.
These are just young college students who think they're playing some kind of a game with police officers.
You know, sometimes they don't even call a white riot a riot.
Party gone awry.
Some fans got a bit too rowdy after the win.
A dispute, a bloody brawl.
There was some type of altercation.
Waco, 170 arrested, 9 people dead.
They're not thugs.
Baltimore, no deaths, but it's a riot, chock full of thugs.
Thugs.
Just thugs.
What if the media portrayed white rioters the same as black protesters? Let's switch the audio and see how it plays out.
Breaking news, violent protest.
What you're looking at is the unraveling of the civil society.
Criminals and thugs.
And they're raising hell and they're destroying property.
These idiotic thugs, rioting and looting, are hurting their own people.
Wild animals burning buildings down.
Especially if they know the media's all there, right? Got the cameras on everyone. It's become its own reality show.
Who acts like that towards a police officer?
Think for yourself. Don't let racist media color your perceptions. Demand fairness in media coverage. Tell the media to put an end to calling black people thugs.
So there's that, right? So let's just start off the conversation there, right? Just so that you understand that what you've probably been watching, well, not probably, what you have been watching throughout the week in corporate media is definitely colored by the bias, the white bias that exists. Another reason why the guest that I have on is so awesome for today, because we're going to be talking about that bias and the deep-seated bias. But I want you to be clear that that bias is already set out there, right? When it comes to that, but we've had something very particular show up in this set of demonstrations, this set of rebellions, and that is the back in the 60s and 70s, there was a program called COINTELPRO. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I've said it before, but COINTELPRO was an FBI program set up by J. Edgar Hoover, who was no fan of black people or freedom, and it was set up to create disinformation, to disorganize black and brown, indigenous, people of color communities, to track, to harass. And so we understand that this still comes on, or it still occurs, as evidenced by the fact that when this administration just came into power, there was a designation of black identity extremists that came out of the FBI, which is a direct link to COINTELPRO, and using that language and using the opportunity to criminalize black people when they are in protest. And so I think it's important that we understand what we're looking at. And this is why this is why we're going to take our time with this show. This is why we're going to take our time, and I want to show you media. This next piece of media that I want to show you is what we're talking about with having white people and white extremists embedding themselves inside of black protest. And you know it's deep when it starts to saturate inside of corporate media. So I want to bring up Joy Reid here, and I want to play this piece of media for you again to help contextualize and to frame this conversation that we're having today.
Jim Kavanaugh, MSNBC terrorism analyst. We weren't expecting to book you this morning either, Jim, but I want to talk to you about this. This is remarkable. We've now heard from, and I'm going to try to remember which of these gentlemen said it, but I think it was the commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Safety, John Harrington, who said they are now going to begin contact tracing, the same kind of contact tracing that has to be done now to try to fight the COVID vaccine, meaning trying to find the origins of hotspots.
Let me explain to you what the hell she just said and how important it is that you understand what the hell she just said. So, you know, when Black people talk about the conspiracies or talk about the things that are happening to us, oftentimes we are told that we are being conspiracy theorists, especially when it comes to tracking us, especially when it comes to over-identifying us, especially when it comes to killing us, especially when it comes to injecting these type of technological pieces into our world, into our life. What she is describing is that the tracers that they use for COVID in order to track human beings and their movements is now being used to track, the government is now using this to track the rioters, if you will, and their movements to see who they're dealing with and who they're talking to and who they're engaging with. And they rolled this program out during the COVID crisis, but now we see they're using it during Black protests. This is COINTEL 2.0, just so that you're clear. But I'm gonna go ahead and finish playing this, but I want you to understand what's taking place right now. And this expert, this white expert who comes from the security apparatus of the United States, is going to break it down. He is going to tell you why this is dangerous, and he's going to trace it back to the 60s movement. Check this out.
For COVID, they're now using that same technique to try to take the people that they've arrested and to trace them to see if they are using these protests to disguise illegal activity and crimes. Your thoughts on all of this, Jim?
Well, Joy, your guests are absolutely right. And let me just put this historically for just a second and then go right to the point. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey. My dad was a firefighter. I remember the riots in '68 after Dr. King was murdered. I remember the troops on the streets, firemen killed vividly. And in my 36 years in law enforcement, I served all over the country. I served as the agent in charge in Birmingham. I'm a student of history. I know the history. And when I hear people say outside agitators, you know, Dr. King was called an outside agitator in Birmingham because at the time he was residing in Atlanta. So that word is charged in American history, and when people roll it out in the wrong way, law enforcement has to recognize it. This is why all law enforcement officers need to be students of history. But that being said, first, been in many command posts. I was a deputy commander in DC Sniper, and I could go on. And we always would pick up information about anarchist groups, terrorist groups, neo-Nazis and Klansmen, which I worked on my whole life. And what's being picked up by the command post from federal, state, and local police across the country is the movement of anarchist groups and the movement probably of white supremacist groups who are doing exactly what Brittany described. They want to derail the effort of the peaceful protesters. They want to derail civil society. They want to derail any movement toward justice. They want anarchy, chaos. This is their raison d'etre. This is what they live for. Fires that can't be put out, governors under stress, policemen being attacked. So this is true, but it has to be kept in the right context by the commanders. Now, I see that happening with the governor and the mayors. I think they've got the right pulse on it. Be careful about using these words, outside agitators, because a movement activist comes from another state because they have a passion for the justice movement. That is not an outside agitator.
Thank you. My co-producer helped me again. Now that you got the framing of the show, now that we've lined it up, we're ready to roll. We're ready to bring up, I was going to say my guest, but now I'm going to say my co-producer at this point. But let me properly introduce my guest today. Dr. Cheryl Matthias was just the 2019-2020 Interdisciplinary Institute of the Study of Inequality visiting professor at the University of Denver, and was recently awarded the 2020 American Educational Research Association mid-career for her work in racial justice. I told you, right? I told you she was dope. Starting the fall of 2020, she will be leaving Colorado, which I'm not happy about at all. I'm in my feelers about this, right? And joining the University of Kentucky as a full professor, which I am happy about, because we know how difficult it is for people of color to get that full professorship. But we'll let her talk about all that because she's been through the ringer. Full professor and director of secondary teacher education. Her research focuses on race, ethnic studies in education with a theoretical focus on critical race theory, critical whiteness studies, which I'm really excited about, critical pedagogy, and feminism of color. Now, this is what I really like right here. Specifically, she uses a feminist lens, right, or feminist approach to deconstruct the emotionality of whiteness. That's the part we're going to dig in deep today. The emotionality of whiteness, right? Because you remember last week's show, we dug 10 toes down on the emotionality of whiteness in urban teacher education and how it impacts urban education. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to my good friend and my good sister, Dr. Cheryl Matthias. Listen, I am so happy to have you on the show. I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome to the Righteous Rage podcast. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. You know, after viewing everything that you had prior to me coming here, I just hope everyone is doing well. It's tough times right now. Rage is not misplaced. It's informative. It's pedagogical. It's just whites need to learn how to bear witness to it. So I just want to send my love out to everyone that's listening and for anyone who's viewing the show, because right now it's going to get real.
It's going to get real. And starting with the getting real part, could you help frame this conversation and give us some more context to what this thing of white emotionality? I think that's so appropriate as we look at the media and how they're approaching Black protest. Can you talk from your perspective, what is this white emotionality?
Absolutely. And I just want to give a shout out to Sochi. I know the whole Spitfire comment, and I appreciate you noticing that I am a dangerous in that I'm highly powerful and intelligent, and I am not shy or apologetic about it. In fact, I don't feel I need to be apologetic for anything, for speaking truth to power. So I just want to say that, and thank you, Sochi, for speaking up on that. And I do want to say thank you to some folks, and I'm representing the hat right now. That's where I did my PhD work, and I'm an LA girl, so in LA. But I really want to talk about the emotionality of whiteness, because it wasn't something I was hoping to do when I first got to Colorado 10 years ago. But I realized in a space like Denver, Colorado, that emotionality of whiteness is so toxic that it'll stop any racially just projects in its tracks, because we all know that white tears have powerful, it's strategically used to engage in racial terrors onto people of color. And I find that to be very much so in the field of education, particularly teaching and teacher education, K-12 teaching, because it's mainly dominated by white females who become the experts of us. So I'm always saying, people are always like, talking about Karens in Central Parks and all of that. I said, yeah, that's your chief diversity officers in all your schools. Who are the experts of us. So these emotionalities are really strong. It's not just about the fragilities that Robin DiAngelo talked about. It goes even deeper than that. It's not just these surface level reactions that white people have with regards to talking about race. It's actually where they psychoanalytically stem from. So much so that what you see is to hide their true feelings about shame and disgust of Black people, about life, about race, and in general. So white emotionalities has been really effective in understanding why racial justice is so impossible in this day and age.
And so I want to follow up with that. Since you say it's so impossible, is that to say that it's not activity worth engaging in, or that there's a certain way that we need to look at engaging it so that and the reason why I'm asking this question is because I know that white people in America have been programmed through the media to look at things in a certain perspective, right? And so how do we engage white people when they have this emotionality trigger that's been implanted through the media in order to have these type of conversations?
Well, they really need to see a mirror to themselves. I mean, Toni Morrison and James Baldwin, they've all said this before. Racism is not a problem of people of color. Racism is a problem of white people. In fact, Toni Morrison said it's a problem of their white psyche, you know, because we don't have issues of seeing our own humanity. The ones who have issues seeing our humanity is white folks who are indoctrinated in whiteness. In fact, I'll even go further to say there are people of color who inhabit whiteness ideology, so much so for like a pseudo sense of survival in a white supremacist world, that they end up engaging in white behaviors as well. So it's really disgusting to see how this plays out in the larger media, because these emotions are coddled. I mean, we don't have to go. I talk about education because that's my passion. But I'm saying when we watch films like Dangerous Minds, Freedom Fighters, Mr. Clark, you know, even The Blind Side, there's always this white savior, right? We know that terminology, but you see how they dehumanize students of color. We're talking about our children. These are the people that are saving, correct? But they go into our communities and they present themselves. Their tears become humanized. Their tears become recognized. And so that sends the message out to the greater white public that their tears mean more than people of color, that people of color's tears are only 3/5 of that of white people's tears. And that is a big thing because they will use that against you.
That's deep. So if you're just now tuning in, I'm speaking to Dr. Cheryl Matthias. Am I pronouncing your last name correct? This is like the third show I've had you on, and I'm now just now asking you because I'm like, wait a minute, I've got this white person tongue on me. How do you pronounce your last name specifically?
If you can say it in Spanish, it's Matias. If not, it's Matias.
Listen, I have my sister Xochitl Gaitan has been working on my Spanish tongue, so Matias it is. I want to show you a few things, and I just want to get your visceral reaction, your visceral thoughts on some images. And these are the images that I'm showing you because of what it is that you just said about there being this programmed dehumanization that exists inside of white society. As we speak right now, as you and I are talking right now, you have taking place in American society what is called the Floyd contest. And it's a contest that's made up of white men, mostly, who are participating and acting as if they are victims. Have you heard of this, the Floyd contest? Okay, so let me bring up this first image for you and get your thoughts on it. This is called the George Floyd contest. And this is I'm gonna pull my picture down so that people can get or my image down so people can get a and what that is, this is a contest that's taking place on social media that is happening right now on social media that white America is currently engaged in. And you can see it's all over, right? Like it's no small You know, it's not like a one-off. It's not like, you know, just somebody's child is engaging in it. You see people who are on their jobs working, who are participating in this. What's going on here? What's taking place from your perspective?
Some fuckery, man. I'm serious. Dumb fuckery, just straight up inhumane bullshit. And it's gotten to a point where we're exhausted of it, you know? And to take the realities of our life and to take the brutalities of anti-Black violence in such lightness is telling of their humanity, not of ours. And so I think it's disgusting display of who they are and who their true colors are showing, right? In every way. It's hard to watch this. It's hard. I refuse to see the video of George Floyd. I refuse to watch. Ever since Oscar Grant, I could not bring myself to watch the murders of not Black bodies, of Black human beings. And so it's ridiculous that they take this. It's not ridiculous. You know what? It's plainly predictable. How's that?
Wow.
It's plainly predictable how whiteness acts in ways that is so blatant with their disgust of people of color, and particularly Black human beings.
So how can you have a conversation, or how can people of color go about? So I am impacted by these images, of course, right? Because I'm not numb. However, I'm not surprised by them either, and I'm sure you're not surprised by them.
Mm-hmm.
How do we move through society with this type of fuckery taking place within the conversation? Like, how do we move through? How can we even hope to have some type of civil discourse with these type of thought patterns going on in white America's head?
Right, and sometimes the civil discourse isn't so civil because the notion of civility is defined by white norms. The minute a woman of color challenges or asserts her expertise in racism, all of a sudden they call us incivil, right? So this notion of civility really needs to be rehashed and revisited because of the fact that it's been so defined to support the silencing of white supremacist structures. So, you know, I say in my first book, I say sometimes, you know, when you're in a position of power like a professor, you need to exert it for the humanly good. You know, it's not about this free for all and everyone can dialogue and come to the table. When you know operations of patriarchy, about ableism, white supremacy, they are still operating the minute you walk through that threshold. And so I operationally and strategically and 100% silence discourse about this because it's about time that these folks learn how to listen to a different tune.
So here's the piece that you are expert on that I want to get your insight on, because this is I would say this is extreme. However, these white boys got white mamas, and it's important to understand that. And their white moms could be in the Democratic Party. They could be in the Green Party, because these are conversations that I've had with even some of people that I consider allies, where they have issue and take issue with the protest and the rebellion that's taking place with, like, yeah, the police officers, they should be arrested, but, and when you hear that but coming, you already know that you're about to hear some white fragility, some white, to use your very academic word, fuckery, coming into play here. Talk to us about what is it that that white women specifically, and I'm using specifically because I want to talk about. It's easy to call these boys, white boys, monsters. However, it's a lot easier to forget that these white boys got mamas where this type of behavior is afforded inside of their homes, inside of their communities. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would refrain from calling them monsters. And here's why. Even though their behavior is absolutely monstrous, right? Because by doing that, other whites can distance themselves in that imagery, in that symbolism. It's like, whites, especially in Colorado, who say this, well, I voted for Obama. I didn't vote for Trump. I have a black best friend. I adopted an African child. I date a Latina. Whatever euphemism they want to use.
Right.
All of them. So that's why I don't get me wrong. I'm disgusted to a point of I'm trying to keep it restrained because I'm on camera and I got my babies outside and they're getting so. But by doing so, we use the master's tools, and we can't dismantle that house, according to Audre Lorde. I don't want to engage in the same type of dehumanization that they do, because I'm a better person and I don't need to stoop to their level. So, but if you were going to talk academically with these folks, right? And you're right. These boys are coddled by their white women. And I think it's very important. There's a book, oh my goodness, it's on my shelf. Excuse me for turning around.
No, please.
Gosh. There's a good book that just came out about what white women did. And it talks about how they were not innocent with regards to slavery. They were very complicit. In fact, in a very part of the process of buying, selling slaves and getting them whipped and having physical abuse. So they are part and parcel, not part and parcel. They were partners in the enterprise of chattel slavery. And so you can go through an entire system, look at these boys and not realize they were nestled in the bosoms of a white woman, right? And so when we think about white women who like to evade, and one part of whiteness and emotionality of whiteness, especially with the white women, is to always claim innocence, right? Always be a victim, right? For example, Central Park, Becky, Karen, whatever you want to call it. I wrote the book on it, right? I done told you, already in my book, Surviving Becky. I told you, Survive Becky's, right? They know how to operationally use it. In fact, these are called like white, if I was to draw from scholar Eduardo Bonilla Silva, who does this work on colorblind racism, these are white semantic maneuvers, right? They're just semantic maneuvers. They can talk a lot of volumes about race without ever saying the word race. And this is exactly how it's done. You talk about child rearing. We look at the atrocities of white men, racism, but that has always been upheld by white women as well. And that is a hard thing. People don't want to go there, but that's true. What do you think? Only white men did the racism in this world? You have to be supported by someone who was packing their lunches when they went off with their hoods, so I think it's an important aspect to realize the other side of this equation, especially when we're talking about systems like education, social work. Who occupies that space? They're not white men mainly. So we really need to think how gendered whiteness happens in our communities as well.
Well, I'm not going to disappoint you. I'm going to keep the images going. I want you to get, and this next image is going to have a particular significance to you as a professor at DU. This is Andrew Wilhelm. Have you seen this picture yet? Have you heard about this yet? You have?
I have.
Okay. This is Andrew Wilhelm, undecided business major at DU. I don't know what the follow-up story is around him. This is the image that he put up. And again, some months back, I had a professor on from South Carolina who talked about the whole psychological craziness of white people around blackface. And the way that he described it was, it's a social, mental condition, addiction. They're addicted to doing this because there's no way that this ends up okay for this white kid. There's no way that this ends up okay. And yet he posts it on social media. It makes the rounds. This is at Denver University. What are your thoughts on this image and on this incident? in total?
You know, several things go through my mind, and of course, that is the number one is of disgust. But let's be real. You know, I'm not only concerned about his image. I'm concerned about how many people likes that photo and how he felt so entitled and comfortable to post that into social media, knowing that he had a cadre of people who were just all going to support him. We're living in a moment where we're returning to emboldening whiteness, right? Emboldening. And I want to be very clear, because as it's emboldening, it's returning to this very blatant style instead of covert racism, not this disconscious. They're very conscious about it, you know? They'll do it in very gaslighting and manipulative ways. They themselves are going to call themselves the victims. Here, let me just entertain me for a second, right? This boy has since been kicked out, has had his acceptance to the University of Denver rescinded, right? Just like how Becky from the park, I don't even want to say her name, got fired from her job, right? Okay, so I want us to push a little, because is that justice in itself, in and of itself? You know, as much as I love the activism, I'm not saying it's wrong. I said there should be consequences. I'm saying what is going to happen is a perverse sense of entitlement when they claim reverse racism. Just hear me out.
I'm listening.
Because, like, you know, what's that guy, Miko, whatever, the one who was doing hate speech, and the Berkeley students protested for him to
shut it down. Mm-hmm.
Yes. He went and said, "Oh, well, I'm the victim of racism."
That's right.
He's perverting it, and then he starts to gaslight everyone, thinking that the true victims of racism is that of white people who are expressing their own norms. There's a difference from freedom of speech, and there's a difference of hate speech. So I want us to be very cautious, because this is the path they're going down. Now this boy's acceptance letter has been rescinded. Now Becky from the park got her job and got her doggy. I mean, she's more, let's be honest, she's more concerned about her dog than she is for the black man that she almost killed. And she intentionally tried to kill, right? And that's the thing. That's not justice. My justice is try her. If you can call fire, right? If you shout fire and people react to it, the fire department comes out, that person is tried for a reckless endangerment, right?
Oh my.
Tack on a hate crime on that. I don't care. This is the problem with the legal system. I don't care about intent, because that proves only severity in murder, right? I don't care, because that's the one thing white girls, I never intend. I don't care about your intent. Your actions are this, you know, and they know how to operationally use that. So I want to see justice done. I want her to be tried for reckless endangerment. I want her to have a tack on of a hate crime. And this boy who's going to go home and say, I'm a victim of racism, they kicked me out. Well, you know, I'm the educator that has to teach. And if I truly believe, and this will be hard for me to hear me on this one.
I'm listening.
If I am a racially just professor, and I truly believe education can be a transformative model in as much as it is a colonizing project, right? I have to be ready to teach the most racist of students. So bring that student to me. In fact, instead of rescinding his offer, why don't you force him to take my class on whiteness at University of Denver?
Right.
See how he goes. And not just that one diversity course. He has to major in it. How's that?
Put him on a full track. Put him on a full track, huh?
Exactly. I am so tired of diversity issues, especially as a professor. I'm so tired of diversity office saying, oh, well, let's get this faculty of color some training to support. No, we don't need training. Y'all need some training, you know?
I love this. I love the whole idea that you're proposing here about, and I just saw that there's some conversations happening around holding people who do that accountable. I love the idea or the comparison of going into a theater and calling out fire, and how that was held out as a crime. I think that started happening in the 40s or the 50s. That was put into place. But I love this idea of beginning to inject that into so that there's some type of serious repercussions that occur around this type of behavior. Listen, I don't want to stop you. You're on a roll. I got another piece of media that I want you to comment on, and I want to articulate this one. Let me pull down my picture so you can read. This is typical of what I am reading on the progressive, democratic. I'm not talking about alt-right sites. I'm talking about on my own Facebook timeline. I've heard this conversation around, yes, it's horrible that a black, and I want those police to be held accountable, but even the best meaning white people don't understand the racist framing inside of this conversation. What goes through your mind, and what's your analysis of this piece of media that you're reading here?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It irks you. Remember, I study whiteness. It's, you get a lot of white professors who go around and say they're experts in Latinx student pipelines or on African-American boy educational. I like to say I study white folks, and how they think they're helping us. So, and I look at this, and this is nothing more than white liberal discourse again, and I'm writing a book on that. So please.
My goodness.
But my response to that, I posted, folk be more concerned about burnt property than burnt black human beings. Get out of here. That was my initial response, because property has more value than black bodies, according to these people. Exactly. So this comes from what Eduardo Bonilla Silva, an abstract liberal type of discourse, right? Now they'll say they're aligned to like humanist. They'll probably put up a quote from MLK as well, right? But these are the people who don't realize that the history of the United States has always been wrought with riots. You could never get any change unless you demand it, right? And so, there was
Dr. Traumatized, wasn't the Boston Tea Party a riot? Right.
And then it did $1.4 million of damage. Let's be real. But when it's white folks, just like you showed in the other video, it's just them. It's just boys being rowdy, And that's the problem.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter is not protesting the opening of hair salons. We're protesting stop killing. Stop killing us. And it's amazing how white liberals will say, yes, we agree with that. But when it actually gets to that discomforting part, they're willing to disengage so immediately. And that's when I talk about white emotionalities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't have the emotional fortitude to truly get engaged in racial justice unless they do the work of deconstruction of their own selves, their own emotional attachment to whiteness. Because here, whiteness is attached to property. Cheryl Harris wrote the whole book on it, whiteness as property. And so they need to disinvest in that ideology in order to move forward in a more humanist way.
I'm sorry. Did y'all hear what she just said? Listen, you are going, if you don't go back and play this video 100 times, there's so many gems being dropped inside of here, and she just drops them and keeps it moving. So she's just used to just dropping dimes. She just said that whiteness itself, the idea of whiteness, which we know is just a mere social construct, is actually attached to property and materialism and things of that in that vein. How the question then becomes, Doctor, if I'm a white person that knows that I got all this going on, how do I engage? What is your prescription as a doctor in whiteness? What is your prescription for white people who want to get out of this sickness, that want to be healed from this disease that is whiteness?
you know what? And I'm an educator, and I've committed myself. I was a classroom teacher in LA Unified School District. I was a K-12 classroom teacher in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. So after getting my doctoral degree, I focused on racial justice in Colorado. That was my heart. That's what I wanted to give to Colorado, despite all the hate mail I got and all the pressure and straight up hateration from administration, right? To try to push me out. But at the end of the day, I believe in education. But the thing is, they can't come to the water if they're not ready to drink. And so I know, so April was saying she had a bad habit of shutting down. Oh, girl, trust me. I clap back really quick. But I have to do what my mama said, sometimes curb my tongue, right? Because at the end of the day, and I'm a woman of faith, so I want to be who I expect them to become. And so I invite them. In fact, on my Facebook page, I am offering just a really intro, race, whiteness, and media, just to see how it happens in social media, how it happens in film. I mean, I know we're really Netflixing and chilling during COVID, right? I mean, really, not the millennial version of it. In this time, it would be a very instructive piece to read these films, media, social text as actual text about race and how to understand it. In fact, I even said I'll offer to pay the registration for up to 5 people to take this summer online on your own pace class, because of the fact that, look, and I said I'm opening it up mainly to people who have not had access to college, those who have conservative views, or anyone who believes all lives matter. Please, I ask you, please.
Wow. So just so the people that are listening are clear, once again, she's dropping dimes. The good doctor is moving to Kentucky. We're not going to talk about it because I don't want to cry on air right now. But congratulations at the same time. She's offering a summer class, and I actually reached out to her last week when this all popped off, and I knew that I had white allies that could use some brushing up. And like you said, let's be clear, Black folks could use some brushing up on it too, because of our consumption of the toxic often. And I love the way that you stated this, that in order to survive as a survival technique, we sometimes parrot these white racist ideas ourselves, but that you're going to offer this course. And I will post the link to that, because I'm encouraging as many people as possible to sign up for it in order to be involved with the work that the organizing work that we do, because it is so important to wash that bullshit off of you, right? If you're going, especially if you're going to then be in spaces of color. So can you tell us when this course starts? And like I said, I will post the link to it.
Yeah, the course is online. It'll be offered through University of Kentucky. It's a learning series. And those of you that sign up for the learning series workshop, you don't even really got to do like the essay or anything. Look at your professor telling you what to not do.
Listen, you're already giving them easy. You're already giving them, listen, I love it.
I'm not going to assess you on your writing, I'm going to assess you on your commitment, because that's what I'm looking for. And people are at different spaces, in this type of work. And I think I do this work. I'm not saying that people of color have to do this writ large, because it's not anyone else's job. It is actually my job to do this. And I'm willing to put myself out there and say that this course that's only 4 weeks long, from June 24th to July 15th, it's just 4 weeks. And I'm asking you to watch some films. I mean, come on. We're going to watch some Netflix, and we are going to chill together. We're going to commune, and we're going to have some dialogue, some articles to help us really understand how not only race, anti-Blackness, stereotypes happen to people of color. What I'm very interested is how white people are depicted and how whiteness is disseminated in film, in addition to the stereotypes. Because we're quick to pick out, hey man, that was racist what they just did to that Black character. But we need to know how they humanize and they recenter whiteness in some of the film, in the same films.
It. I'm signing up. I'm a student for that for sure. I'm all in for that. Listen, Dr. Cheryl Matthias, Thank you so much. Listen, I can't even begin to thank you. This was a master class. That's what this was. This was a master class, and I'm demanding. I'm not even asking. I'm putting on my professorial hat. I am demanding that those of you that are watching this, that you share this out at least 10 times to people that can benefit from this. We promise to have Dr. Cheryl Matias on again so that she could listen. She has quite a few books out, by the way. You heard her, and she's talking about writing more. Yeah, show us your work, sister. There it is, Surviving Becky's. Now, listen, if a doctor writes a book called Surviving Becky's, it's a book you need to get. ASA Mofo P. Make sure that you make that happen. And again, we'll post the links to her books and her material. Yes, love it, absolutely love it. Sister, thank you as always for breaking this down for us and spending this time with us and educating me, quite frankly. We have quite a few guests that are sitting here listening to our conversation, but you just master class this tremendously. So thank you so much for doing that. And we wish you all the love and best and support in your journey to the University of Kentucky. They are very, very lucky to have you, and I hope they know that.
Yeah, it's a good space. Know that I'm going into good arms. They've been so. I just found out today. I got my full professor.
I saw that. I saw that.
So, they've been good to me, and I'm really excited. They've been supporting this course. You guys can find me on CherylMatias.com. But the fastest way, I'm old school. I can't tweet or twat or whatever I can't Instagram. I don't know any of those. I'm old school. Facebook me. Keep in touch that way. I have, I know Lonnie asked about it. I have the course and the link online there, and just send me a direct message. I'm for real. If you know someone who would be invited, instead of calling out all the time, call them in, because we've got to have some coalition to make this work.
That's
so.
Right.
Let me do the work. You don't got to stress yourself. I got him. I got you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Be safe out there during COVID. And you know what? Heal. Take the time to realize we're all living in traumatizing moments. Thank you.
Whoa. Holy shit. Wow. No bullshit. I'm speechless at this point. Like, seriously, there were so many gems dropped inside of her talking points that my mind is spinning. I hear her just elucidating on so many important points that I had questions about even myself. Listen, I have pinned the 2-minute take link. If you have a 2-minute take, if you want to talk about Dr. Matias, please feel free to do so. That link is inside of the Facebook link now. Y'all got 10 minutes to do it. The link is posted inside of the Facebook. It's pinned up at the top. If you want to come in, please come in. I see my sister, Miss Winning, that's out there. It's good to see you there. I saw my mom in the house. I can never not say what's up, Mom. You see this brown brilliance that we had in front of us this evening. Listen, I will. The Righteous Rage Institute will match. She said that she would cover the tuition for 5 people. The Righteous Rage Institute will cover we'll match that. We'll cover another 5 for people who are interested to be engaged inside of this conversation. And I'm saying another 5. I'm not including MySpace, and I'm not giving MySpace away. So you got like that 80s info commercial. No, my brother, you got to get your own. So my 5 is not included in that. If you are wanting to do that, we will post the link directly after the show. My mom says that she was phenomenal. And she was absolutely phenomenal. And here's the funny thing about it. And you can never tell this. And this is how you always know that you're about to have a bomb-ass interview. She said, get this, y'all, she was nervous. Now, that don't make no sense. That when she said that, I was like, this is about to be the bomb. She's about to go off because we've done it with her before. So on that note, listen, family, thank you for tuning in. We're a couple of minutes over our time. I really appreciate you tuning into this. Like I said, like it, share it, send it to your white friends and family members that you go to Thanksgiving with that always end up saying some strange shit that you kind of have to turn your head to. Send this link to them so that you can have this discussion. This is one of those discussions that can educate the populace. On that note, my name is H. So. I appreciate you for tuning in. I see my sister from high school, Tammy Gray. What's up, sis? I'm glad that you could hop in this conversation. And we will post all of her links, all of her books, so that you can have access to it. But most importantly, we're going to post her course information because it was, I want y'all to be involved with this. It's time for y'all to follow Dr. Mathias. Even as she travels to the University of Kentucky, you need to be a fan of this woman and her work. You need to be an avid fan, as I am. So on that note, my name is H. Soul, and remember, we must love and protect one another. We have nothing to lose but our change. On behalf of the Righteous Rage podcast, I want you all to have a wonderful, safe, beautiful, insightful, educational, ancestral evening and week. And on that note, H. Soul, I'm out.